attachment styles, love languages, and what have you are the main ones.
Attachment styles, and also I want to say that we sometimes either attract where we are in ourselves, like if we're not in the journey of being like secure, or we attach attract, right? Attract old relationships, like our first relationship, whether it was a parent or whoever, maybe raised us or something. So I wanted to like kind of just intro with that, because
Well, that's
from
all
what
part of it. It
yeah,
is.
all right,
Your
so you can get
childhood, your
into it.
upbringing. If you had traumas in your childhood, that's going to affect your attachment styles in your adult life.
Mm. So
So,
talk about it a little bit so people understand where it comes from and like why we are how we are. And
okay, so you got the four main types. First one is secure attachment. You're good. You're raised by a loving family. Everything's cool. And in your relationships, you're comfortable. You're secure. You're in that good energy of secure, and what you want. You're cool. Give your partner, their space. You let them do their thing. They let you do your thing, and then good. And that's about half of the population is, the
you think
secure
so?
attachment. Huh?
You think it's half? I feel like
It
people are
is.
really
No
fucked up.
statistics on that. It's about 50%. Then
Okay.
you get people like us that are fucked up in some way, shape, or form. And you got the other ones, which are you got the anxious attachment style, you have the avoidant attachment style,
Mm,
and then the last one would be disorganized or the anxious avoidant attachment style, which is a blend of both. And on those, with the anxious and the avoidant, each of those is about 20%. And then the final one, the combination of the two, is about 10% of the population. And these change over time because the I don't want to say the unhealthy ones, but the ones that aren't the secure attachment type, you have some type of trauma to relate to that, whether it was in your upbringing in your childhood or
abandonment. Abandonment.
abandonment, a parent leaves, you have an abusive parent, you have an
Yeah.
alcoholic parent, you have an absent parent, just one that wasn't there. Um,
And
and
also you can swing in and out of them. Like I know for myself, I've been an anxious attachment, I've been avoidant,
uh-huh.
and I've also been insecure through all relationships. It depends, like, what you're pulling from the other person's energy. You
Well, I
can
should
swing.
say, I should go back. So there's the two mains, basically when they categorize these. So you got the secure attachment, and then you
Mm,
have the insecure attachment, and then the anxious avoidant. Those are kind of like subcategories. So it kind of falls into that. Um,
but you can go in and out of them. I don't think
yes.
that, and I think that we attract also, like if we're an anxious, we'll attract the avoidant. Like we'll pull that from someone because they'll feel like the energy. They'll be like, this person's anxious, I'm gonna pull back. And then if you're in the avoidant, the other person will be in the anxious. Like you tend to attract the opposite, right?
So I think so. I think a big part of the problem is if you get somebody that has any of the insecure types and you start dating a secure person, they don't know how to handle that type of love or that type of a relationship. Meaning when you go back to like childhood, and a lot of this roots back to childhood.
All of it.
Yeah,
All of it. That.
if you couldn't get your parents' love because they were drunk or they were abusive or they were
Emotionally unavailable.
emotionally unavailable or checked out or just not there
Mhm.
because they're working all the time, those type of people, when they get upset and the person that is supposed to be there for them, these type of people often have to self-soothe when they're upset and go within, turn within to when they're triggered or when they're upset, they're not used to relying on another person or getting the love that you're supposed to get from a parent, so they can't really get it from a partner. And then
Well, wait a second. I think we keep attracting that relationship into our lives until we look within and we heal whatever was done to us, like the original wound. I
yes,
think that.
I mean, you do
So
use therapy and stuff and you can switch over time. Yes.
yeah, so if we look back to our original relationship, usually it's like your mother or father or whoever was like your main love source or lack thereof. Um, I know personally, I attracted my mother in men until I forgave what she did, and I forgave that, and I worked within instead of looking for someone to give me that.
Right.
And then I started to attract people that actually showed up for love and weren't just like, oh, I'm going to take something from you, or I'll get what
Mhm.
I can. And so I think we keep attracting that in until we really work on it.
So to just hit some points on each one, you get the secure attached. They're comfortable with intimacy and independence. They trust
Mm-hmm.
their partners. They have positive user relationships. They can communicate their needs effectively. And, trust and communication is an important thing in a relationship, any relationships, obviously. Then when you
Yeah.
get to the insecure styles, the anxious, they worry about their partner's feelings and they have that constant fear of rejection and they have to,
It's a
yes, very
needy
needy. They have
energy,
that constant seeking for
desperate.
reassurance.
They're
They're very
desperate. Mm.
emotionally sensitive and they just don't know how to stress with any cope or anxiety in relationship. And when you get that person with a secure person, it's like, when they're constantly seeking that validation or whatever, I think they can come across, like you said, very needy, very clingy, very like,
Yeah,
and then anything you do, yes,
the energy is unattractive when you're in that energy.
you
And I'm
kind of
not saying
push the other
anything.
person away with your
Yeah.
behavior. And then you get
And
the, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'll change. And then they just do it
Mm.
again. And then it all goes back to, you got to deal with the other trauma. And let's hit the other two real quick. The avoidance, these people value their independence a lot more. They
Well,
kind of,
they're used to the avoidance have the emotionally usually they didn't get the emotion. So the
right,
parent
so they
was
struggle with the intimacy.
yep, they're
um
not comfortable with verbal love.
Correct,
They might
expressing
be fine.
themselves, they
They
just
might be
don't
fine
know the words.
sex, but not. And they usually are the ones that say, "Oh, I'm independent. I don't want a relationship. I'm fine. I don't need that. Blah blah blah." Like I'm good.
Well, so they also do, they value their independence is right. Because like we
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, they, had to self-soothe if they got into difficult situations because they didn't have the love from a parent. And they're self-reliant. They don't want to depend on anybody else because they couldn't depend on somebody as a child or, something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
when they get into a relationship and something happens that maybe triggers them, it might not be in the relationship, maybe it's a work issue, maybe they're stressed about something else, what they do is they pull away and they'll start distancing themselves, and that just leaves the other person confused.
Hang
And
on. Good point. That's coming from an abandonment wound, most
yeah,
likely. You know,
abandonment, like you said, the parent wasn't there, they weren't getting their emotional needs met, so when they were
wasn't
stressed out,
there.
they had to just rely on themselves.
Yeah. And
So if they're getting
also,
quiet or distancing, that's just normal for them, and the other person leaves them confused. And I think these people actually really want love, but I don't think they
freak
realize what they're
out.
doing.
No, they freak out because they feel it. It's uncomfortable because it's different and new.
They don't know how
And
to
it,
handle it. And they get that fear
and
of enmeshment. Oh my God, this person is like too much on me, or I'm not comfortable with this feeling. And then
not
they
only
pull
that,
away.
but imagine like, when you meet a soulmate, how do you feel? You feel like, oh my God, I want to be in this person's energy all the time. Right.
And that
But
becomes scary.
then your wound is like, but my parent left me. So if my parent left me and I wasn't good enough for them, I wasn't good enough for a mother's love, I wasn't good enough for a father's love, this person's definitely going to leave me. And your
Mhm.
soul and everything, your body's like, it starts freaking out and you pull away before something even happens.
Yep.
Before you even get hurt, you're like, oh my God, I have to get away from this. That's that running away thing too. But
Mhm.
anyway, go ahead.
And
I don't want
then,
to.
the last one would be the disorganized or the anxious avoidant, where you got a blend of those two, the anxious and the avoidant. And
Mm,
again, these people, I think, genuinely want love and they want a relationship, but there's a chart thing that I saw that's like a cycle of avoidance. Like they get into a relationship and things are good, and then as time goes on, uh they start pulling away, or they get the anxious, and then they get the anxious part, and then it shifts to avoidant, and then pulling away, which leaves the other partner confused. And then you end up having the breakup. And then, then these people feel relief. They're like, oh, okay, I had to get out of that situation. It was too much. It was too overwhelming. And, they're happy for a while. And then after, that person just stops talking, leaves them alone, they have some space and they can relax and they can calm their energy down. And they're like, why don't my relationships work out? And then they get back into, okay, I want a relationship. And that cycle just keeps going around and around and around.
But if you are aware of your triggers, because we still can feel them and it's okay, but if you're aware of them and you're like, oh God, I'm getting this feeling again, and you actually work on it, like within, you can still continue to get back to the secure attachment. And I'm speaking from experience because I've been an anxious, I've been an avoidant, I've been a blend, I've been secure, and I'll get close to someone and I'll feel myself do it because I have the abandonment wound and my mother was emotionally unavailable and she took off after a while. So I'll be like, oh my God, this is uncomfortable. This isn't going to last. It's going to be like everything else. In your mind, you start doing that trigger.
Yeah. So if you do work and you do, trauma is the key with all of them, all the insecure ones. But if you don't work on it, whether it's yourself, whether it's a therapist, it's not going to change. And you can shift over time to different ones. And it's funny, I heard somebody say the other night, and we can close with this, you're going to like this one. When you do a lot of work on yourself and you address your traumas and you work through them and you get to that place of peace and you distance yourself from certain people and you get away from fake people and you just have your core people, and then you meet someone and you're talking to them, you can like nail their issues on the head. Like, oh, you got this trauma, you got this issue, just and the other person can't see it and you can see it. You're like, well, bang, 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 bang. And if they're like, oh no, I'm not, like, what you're talking about. It's like, you can see it once you clear your own shit.
Clear your energy.
It's energy too, but what I'm saying is once you learn about these things and how these traumas and things in your past, it doesn't have to be a parent, it could be anything that had loss of a loved one or anything, your dog died and you took it hard, I don't know, but anything that triggers you that hard and you work through it, you can shift these, but you can see it so clearly in other people. And it, you kind of, tell me if this is true for you, we'll close here. You don't want to hang around with the people that can't or don't want to
look at their own
work on
shit.
it. Yes.
Look at their own shit.
Right. Not necessarily on a deep level, but at all.
Just at all. Like, look at your shit. You're not a victim. None of us are. We've all been through hell. We've all been through something. We just don't know until we all start talking about it. So yeah, I think it's authenticity, looking at ourselves, working on our shit, and just trying to show up every day better and better.
There you go. That's a good way